Okay. All right, let's call the meeting to order. Melissa, will you do roll call?
Yes. Mayor Mark Sukup,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Here.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Here.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Here.
Councilmember Brett Hansen.
Here.
All right, we don't have any amendments to the agenda as that we are on the second amended agenda. So that's what we're going to be working from. Public comment. Is there any public comment? Brian? I don't think
we did receive 4 additional emails that were not included in the packet, and they will be included in the minutes for the meeting. And all of those were sent out to the council members at about 5:15 this afternoon.
Okay, great. And no live public comment.
No, Mayor.
At this, yeah. Okay, and so we do have the list of public comments in the agenda from page 4 to page 53, if somebody wants to take a look at it. So consent agenda payables. Do I have any comments?
Yeah, this Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes,
this is
please.
our mayor. I'll go ahead and
You demote me?
no, I'll go ahead and make a motion on this one. I think you'll have to recuse yourself because it has the engineering bill
Correct.
inside.
Correct.
So
Okay.
I so move the consent agenda payables.
Great. Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay. Melissa, will you roll call? You're on mute, Melissa.
You're on mute.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
I recuse myself. Consent agenda other. Could I have these are just standard items that already have been reviewed before. So
I'd so move we accept the town council meeting minutes for May 26th.
and
And the budget?
the road maintenance budget.
Yes,
Okay,
if you want to do them separately or together.
I think we do them together unless
Okay.
somebody has an objection. Okay,
So move together.
okay. Do I have a second?
Second. Second.
Melissa, you do a roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. So reports, I'm going to start out here, and I've got 4 different things that I've been asked to discuss. So the first thing is emails. As far as I think we all on the council want to communicate and get back to any resident that has questions of us and wants to understand something that's gone on with council. We absolutely want to respond to those, but they're sort of bouncing around. I think there's a perception that we're looking at Facebook and Nextdoor and some of the other social media sites. And so what we request is we'll respond to every question or request if you could go to our website, and in the website there's a comment section, and if you would put your comments there, it gets to all of us will see it. If you'd like to direct it to one council person or mayor or the town manager, identify that on your salutation line, and that person will get to you directly. If not, we'll make sure that somebody does respond and gets back to you. If you still have a question after we thought that we answered your question, please send it back in again. We want to make sure that you get your questions answered and any action items that we respond to. Okay, the second thing is the foundation, the Timnath Foundation. When a month ago, I asked the Timnath Foundation to supply their financial statement, which we got a chance to look at. And just as a part of a background, the Timnath Foundation was originally formed as a way for business and individuals to contribute tax-free to events, programs, projects that help the community. The organization was formally created in the fall of 2019. Since that time, it was working towards certain organizational infrastructure and attempts to both put out the word that it's there and request donations. Then we had the pandemic hit, and for many organizations, it caused disruption. For the foundation, it's no different. In fact, it was somewhat fatal. Seeing the impact of the pandemic, the Timnath community, the foundation shifted its mission slightly to try to meet the needs of the local residents and businesses. Specifically, the organization launched the Timnath Community Cares Program to help residents and businesses in need. The board of directors acted quickly to raise the money and help the community. Unfortunately, the foundation never had the time to build an administrative support structure, and donors were in short supply, and thus not many donations came in. The board reconvened last week and discovered that the expected donations and revenues had not materialized as anticipated, that expenses were continuing to come in at an amount that could exceed its revenues in a very short time. So in short, the foundation didn't have the funds needed to pursue its mission. As such, I was advised that the board of directors made the difficult decision to dissolve the Timnath Foundation. The spirit of the foundation remains, and I'd like to thank the individuals that were board of director members of the Timnath Foundation, or board of trustees of the Timnath Foundation. They were engaged, passionate, dedicated people. I'm confident at some time we may be able to reenact this foundation, but at this moment in time, it's a situation where I think they acted in well thought out decision and terminated the Timnath Foundation. Okay, third thing I've got is applications. So as everyone knows, we've got 2 new and formed committees that will report to the council, the Metro District Committee and the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee has had its application out for 3 weeks. The end date for the Finance Committee applications will be June 12th. The applications for the Metro districts have been out there for a little while too, and they are due June 19th for us to respond to. And I know this is probably precluding or putting you up a little bit here because I still have another comment, but do you want to make any comment on the Metro District Committee, Brett?
I guess in one relation to that subject, just to make sure people are aware, the town's going to be doing a Metro District 101 presentation Thursday night. There is information on that on the website. That'll be something that'll be streamed and Zoom, and I believe people will also join the Zoom meeting to ask questions of the presenter. It'll be one of the attorneys at the law firm that we contract with. And yeah, last I heard, we've gotten a number of applications, and I look forward to when we can get to work on that. So yeah, learn a little bit more about Metro District's Thursday night. You can also learn a bit more about the committee and go from there.
Yeah, I think we're all excited about these committees and looking forward to getting them going. The last committee we have is the Park Trail and Reservoir Committee. It will, its organization structure will be formed on June 24th. And on that date, there will be I guess subject to the council approving it, but on that date, then there will be the application process opened up. And so if you're interested in that committee, please take a look at our website, and we will have the applications there for that, for you to sign up with. Okay. And we noticed a number of emails coming in with questions and thoughts. So it looks like it's a committee that's got a lot of meat to sit there and be able to deal with over the next period of time. The fourth thing I wanted to mention, and I'm really proud of our police force. The recent 8 Can't Wait campaign and policies that are being disseminated pursuant to the events that have been happening this last week and a half is something that in approaching our police chief, he was totally all over, and our police department, I'm proud to say, is on it. And Terry, would you mind sort of identifying and commenting as to what you're doing in that area?
I'd be happy to. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. You should be relieved to know that our agency is committed to fairness and quality, and we were well ahead of the power curve when it came to the concerns raised by 8 Can't Wait. All of our officers have received a minimum of 556 hours of post-training, which is required by the state of Colorado. In addition to that, every officer in the agency receives an additional 24 hours annually of in-service training. And Mayor and members of council, you know, every Wednesday we meet and go over in-service training issues that have to do with other items that are pertinent to our directives manual. Regarding specifically the 8 Can't Wait, they had 8 points of concern, and so I can briefly outline those. One of them was ban chokeholds and strangleholds. The Timnath Police Department does not use carotid restraints or chokeholds, and any member that we have on the agency shall not apply pressure to a person's neck that is sufficient to cause breathing difficulties. We require de-escalation. De-escalation means that we try to calm a situation down before it becomes manifest into something more serious. Every officer is trained in de-escalation techniques. In fact, 6 of our 8 officers are crisis intervention trained. All the additional 2 were slated to be in the training, but COVID-19 affects everyone, including the police officers, so that's been postponed, but that'll help later on in the year. Additionally, we also use mental health professionals to assist us when the need arises and call them into scenes to help organize things or calm things down. The other concern was a verbalization of what was going to happen as far as a warning before use of force was engaged. So our training includes verbal commands and warning before any event takes place. So we warn people what we're going to do before we engage. So such as if a person was acting in an unusual fashion or a violent fashion, we might tell them, if you don't calm down, we're going to have to tase you. And we warn them to back off, to settle down, and then try to communicate effectively with us. And of course, all of that comes in through the crisis intervention training. We exhaust all options before taking deadly force into consideration, such as a shooting incident. We apply the least amount of force necessary in order to gain control or compliance with an individual. So those defensive tactics start in the academy setting and they work their way right through a law enforcement officer's career. Regarding duty to intervene, what the concern there was is much the same as what occurred in Minneapolis, is that individuals did not intervene, the other officers on scene. And I'm getting a little bit of feedback here, so
over the next couple of months, we are going to be.
the duty to intervene is ensures ethical treatment of community members, intervention tactics, the judgment. We utilize integrity and ethical decision-making. And there is also a state law that mandates any police officer that sees another officer using excessive force, they're required by law to intervene. So an officer can automatically be charged criminally as well as lose their job if they fail to intervene. Shooting at moving vehicles, that's something we frown tremendously upon. Officers should not shoot at any part of a vehicle in an attempt to disable that vehicle. Officers are encouraged to move out of the path of an oncoming vehicle. You would think that this is sometimes commonsensical, but nonetheless, officers are engaging individuals, so they will do everything they can to keep someone from fleeing a scene. And in the event that a shot is fired at a vehicle, the officer would have to articulate the absolute requirement of the use of deadly force and be able to articulate that and convince essentially the reviewing entity for our town, which is our district attorney's office. The two final things are use of force continuum. As I mentioned earlier, we use the only amount of force that's required to bring someone into compliance or to custody. We don't go up that level of continuum unless it's necessary. And once we get compliance, we immediately start ratcheting things back down. And then the final item that they were concerned about was the requiring of comprehensive reporting. So our department requires the use of force and the show of the use of force to be written down, documented, and then it's reviewed by the supervisors in the agency. And if we find out that there's an infraction, that's followed up with an administrative review. So as I mentioned, Mayor, all of the concerns that 8 Can't Wait we have addressed prior to their voicing and concerns. So we think that we're in very, very good condition from a national perspective. In fact, we think that we're one of the more progressive agencies, certainly in the region.
Great, thanks, Chief Jones. We're unbelievably fortunate to have you with us, so we appreciate it.
Thanks, Mayor.
That ends my report. Brett, I think you had a report that you wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I just basically the goal of my report was to get it out there that we are getting a lot of messages regarding people wanting to expand the use of boating at the reservoir. We hadn't been getting much feedback from those that aren't boaters, the motorized boaters, and I wanted to just start getting that a little bit more out in the public so we could stimulate a little more feedback. And we have started to receive a few more messages over the last couple of days on that. I know for my part, any analysis of change to those rules, I want to get everybody's feedback and just make sure we have the conversation and see what still makes sense, what people still want. I don't use the reservoir much myself, so I don't have a personal dog in the fight, just want to know if people still want. So that's the only reason I placed that report in there.
Great. Aaron, I think you had a comment too that you wanted to report.
I did, and along with Brett there, I'm definitely monitoring those questions on the reservoir. And once we have the open space and Timnath Reservoir Trails Committee in place, we'll definitely be trying to put out some type of, and maybe that's part of the community survey, just asking what people's thoughts are with the boating so that we can make a choice. I know that it's more popular this year with some of the other restrictions with COVID than it has at any point, but we'll definitely be soliciting more comments from everybody on both sides of it before any decisions are made. And of course, that'll be done here in public once we're back in, either on Zoom, but hopefully in person when we're back in person. But what I'd like to say here as a follow-up to the small business grant program, we did meet yesterday and we awarded a total of $27,500 to 6 different businesses. And those checks will be going out here sometime this week for those businesses. And we'll have a more full detailed report for you at the next council meeting that'll be included in the packet. Just because we were able to sort through the process yesterday more quickly than we anticipated. So there wasn't enough time to get this report into the packet for this week, but we will certainly have that for you for next week or next meeting.
Thanks, Aaron. Anything else? Oops, yeah, just a sec. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a comment. I wanted to piggyback on with what Brett and what Aaron was saying regarding the reservoir with those comments. Because of the formation of the committees and everything is being talked about, we might want to look at a scenario where we implement some temporary changes. And that way we can sort of experiment on how those are going if possible, a lot sooner than have to wait a month or month and a half. I do have a dog in that fight. I have a neighbor that's got a boat that tells me every chance he gets that it's a great lake and he thinks it could easily hold more boats. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that end, but maybe Wes and maybe people that do know can look at it and say, well, let's try a trial run and try to get a little more use out of that because we are paying an annual lease on that facility.
Wes, do you want to comment?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So it's timely, Councilman Collins. Staff's been having some conversations about how we can look and have an interim, a bit of an interim solution while we're trying to figure out what might be a little more permanent policies going forward through the parks, trails, and reservoirs. So in looking at the rules and administrative guidelines that are in place, I think the town manager has some discretion to kind of monitor that situation. So it's probably going to be on a case-by-case basis. And a lot of it's driven by the particular use going on a particular day. So if we have, for instance, 4 or 5 fishing boats huddled up in one corner of the reservoir and seem to be there for extended periods of time, we could perhaps permit additional speedboats out there to enjoy that. Or on some days when that's not the case, we wouldn't be able to. So we feel like we have the some administrative leeway as an interim solution, and we're going to be working with staff there at the reservoir to take a look at that.
Very
Lisa,
good.
Did I see you? Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, I was actually one thing I was gonna say was actually commenting kind of what Rick said there about having some kind of interim policy. I would prefer if it's not a case by case, but somewhat of a like, whether it's expanding the days or expanding the numbers or something like that, just so that residents who are trying to get out there kind of know what to expect or something like that. Just based on the time frame for the committee, I'm not sure by the time that's up and running, they look at it, then it comes back to council. I worry that summer will be halfway, if not more, over. So I second that idea of trying to look at some kind of interim policy and definitely maybe make that a priority once that group is formed. Also, I did have a quick question for Aaron. You mentioned the amount that was granted to those businesses. Were there some businesses, or can you provide any input, more information about were there businesses who applied who were not given some of those funds, or did most people get what they were asking for, if they were eligible, of course? Anything like that. I know you'll have a report next time, but I was just kind of curious.
Sure. I think there were 6 businesses that applied and all of them met the eligibility requirements. So we do appreciate that it was limited to the people who knew that they were eligible. The minimum grant, I believe, was $3,000. Is that correct, Brett? Am I remembering right? Yeah. And the highest grant was $6,500.
Lisa sort of had a 2-part question there, and in the first part, Wes, I think sort of was directed at you in that she said that she was wondering if being more Well, why don't you say what you said, Lisa? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I was talking about maybe an interim policy where we extend the days, the number of days where the boats are allowed, or if we increase the number of boats allowed at each day. I know we've gotten some emails about expanding the days, maybe some days during the week when people can go, maybe making it later in the evening or allowing more, just maybe kind of play around with some of that.
Yeah, we can, staff can take a look at that. Again, we have some obviously constraints built into the reservoir based on the kind of use that's out there, the impacts on the reservoir. So as you know, we lease that, we don't own that. So we're trying to adhere to the agreement we have both with the ditch company as well as the residents who surround it. And frankly, the residents who use it in a more passive way, there's a lot of quite a number of residents who actually use it for paddle boarding and in less active ways. So it's balancing all of those constraints and trying to figure out what's manageable. You're right. I don't like case by case, but in a situation where we're in this interim place where we really do need to probably update our policies. Some of it's going to depend on the kind of use that's being requested. And so, but having said that, we will do our best to be as definitive as we possibly can so the residents can certainly have an idea or an expectation about what they can count on for their plans.
That would be great. Thank you. And then I did mention this to Brian as well, but just so that all of you know, just in case there are comments or questions, I think the live stream link has been having some issues tonight. So I just wanted to let people know that I guess the meeting tonight is being put on YouTube, but the message that was on Facebook hadn't had the link to our website. So I wanted to let all of you know, just in case you hear comments from community members.
Thanks, Lisa. I'm ready. With any other comments for council? Okay, let's head into the business side. Ordinance number 5. Terry, Police Chief Jones, do you want to give your report?
You bet, Mayor. This is regarding the fireworks. As you know, we put forward a request for the amendment of an ordinance regarding fireworks. And what it concerned essentially in the short version was to adopt Colorado state laws that pertain to fireworks. Essentially, our town prohibited everything under the sun when it came to fireworks and the 4th of July celebration. And the state of Colorado allows a variety of fireworks such as fountains, pinwheels, ground spinners, illuminating torches, sparklers, and growing worms that you place on the ground. Essentially, state law permits that people possess them for personal use, providing they don't leave the ground. And the ones that were prohibited, Mayor, were firecrackers, pop bottle rockets, Roman candles, cherry bombs, and more powerful fireworks that were prohibited by ordinance. So the first reading went through, and we're certainly in support of something along these lines in the event that people in the town of Timnath want to celebrate the 4th of July. They're not for commercial distribution, and nor are we asking that the town allow the sale of fireworks to be permitted.
Okay. Brett, do you have any comments here?
Sure. I had a couple comments regarding some suggested changes to the ordinance. So our intent was to allow the use of all fireworks that the state of Colorado allows. I spent some time on the phone with one of the vendors up north who have much experience in these things. So I figured I'd share a couple definitions with the council and then suggest which ones I suggest we maintain the prohibition on. So cylindrical fountains and cone fountains, I think those are generally well understood. It's the tubes you put on the ground, you light, and a bunch of sparkles will shoot up. Wheels, that is what those are designed to do, is something that you might nail to a tree, and then you light it and you spin. Something like that is actually going to be on my list, and I'll review all these at the end, but something like that is on my list of ones we can maintain the prohibition on. I don't know that we have a lot of appropriate places for something like that in Timnath. A ground spinner is essentially it's kind of like a top. You light it and it spins out right on the ground, isn't supposed to leave the ground, and then will sparkle and light. Illuminating torches and colored fire. Those are basically sparklers, but instead of sparkles, it's a colored flame, but the same basic idea. And then dipsticks and sparklers. And then explosive auto alarms is a device that's supposed to make a loud enough bang that it can set off a car alarm. That is going to be on my list of ones we maintain a prohibition. Toy propellant devices. That's little fireworks that are designed to be with a toy, like a little car or little tank. They're pretty harmless. And then cigarette loads and strike-on box matches. What I was told is those are actually prohibited by federal law to sell. You'd have to go on lands that are not controlled by the federal government to get them. So I'm going to suggest those are still prohibited. If they're banned by federal law, that's good enough for me. Other trick noisemakers, those like the snaps and things like that. Snake and glowworms. Oh, it's basically a pellet you put on the ground, you light it, and then it grows. Looks like a little snake growing out of the ground. I'm actually going to suggest we maintain a prohibition on these. The reason being, they leave a pretty nasty residue. I heard from multiple sources that when they sell them to people, they suggest they put them on cinder blocks or on any sidewalk or asphalt they don't care about. I do care about our sidewalks and asphalt, so I'm going to suggest we maintain the prohibition on those. Item 9, fireworks that are used exclusively for testing or researched by a licensed explosives laboratory. I'm going to suggest we maintain a prohibition on that. I don't see a need for people to test experimental fireworks in Timnath. And then multiple tube devices. That's essentially when you have like an array of your fountains, or it's a larger fountain device that they'll light up in succession. It might last for 10 minutes, something like that. It's kind of a finale type device. But in effect, it's like the fountains, that it's a big version of the other fountains, and I'm fine with that. So interview, the ones I'm going to suggest we maintain a prohibition would be items 3, the wheels, and then items 7.1, the explosive auto alarms, 7.3 and 7.4, the cigarette loads, the strike-on box matches, item 8, the snake and glowworms, and item 9, the experimental fireworks.
Okay. So did you state that in the form of a amendment and a motion?
I don't know if we, well, yeah, that will be one.
Yeah, Mark, you've still got the fire chief.
Right.
No, I understand, but I thought that we'd have the motion full in place before we did public comment, if that's okay.
I think we actually need the public hearing portion first.
Correct.
Do we? Okay.
Yes.
Chief Dement, would you, well, wait, I need to do this as public service. So hold on, Chief, just a second. So we will open the public hearing. It is 6:32. And I know we have somebody to speak at the public hearing, which is Chief Dement. So Chief Dement.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Board. Again, a proud neighbor of all of you living here in Timnath, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I do represent the Poudre Fire Authority, which is your fire department, and we work closely together, and we'll continue to work closely together on all matters, including fireworks. Depending, it's not independent of your decision tonight. Whatever you decide, we will work closely with you in enforcement and education of the community in regards to fireworks. However, I still encourage the board to take great consideration when it comes to fireworks, and the classification of fireworks we're dealing with, which do include those that come from our neighbors to the north of the border. Our classification of fireworks called 1.4G. 1.3G is the stuff that we hope that the community can celebrate. Those are the things that are much more those are the commercial style stuff. But as I mentioned last time, our first plea is with pets and vets, particularly in pets, and somebody who lost a German Shepherd some 35 years ago to fireworks, who broke down a fence and drowned in an irrigation ditch. The pets, even with the noise from the fountains and those things do cause stress in the pets. And then the veterans have reached out to us. There are different veterans groups dealing with PTSD. They've reached out to the Poudre Fire Authority and asked us to help them to limit the amount of fireworks that are used in the community. The city of Fort Collins in 2018 opened up we have tried all sorts of things in enforcement. And I understand that frustration. I understand that with Chief Jones. In fact, him and I have talked about that. Is you can really chase your tail trying to chase it. Oh, there's something popping in the neighborhood over, and you go over there and the people move, and that becomes more difficult. We've had much more success with a very vigorous public education campaign. And opening up a landline online reporting. In 2018 alone, we had 600 complaints that were logged to in the city of Fort Collins regarding fireworks. And that shows that the community, a lot of those people do have a lot of concerns when those goes off, when those are being shot. Nationally, there are on an average of about 18,500 fires a year. There are just over 9,000 injuries, and 40% of those injuries are to children under the age of 15. The other thing I'd like to call your attention to, and I won't bore you with a picture, I have photos. My pub ed coordinator sent photos with me, but just a year ago, on July 6th, just after the 4th of July, we had a fire in a residence that did $150,000 worth of damage. And that was from fireworks that had already been shot and put into the garage. It wasn't from something being shot. So it's not just them being shot, it's after they've been shot while they're still smoldering and stuff. That was $150,000 damage. In 2011, we had a fire, as I mentioned last time, that was in some junipers outside a residence, which the family had to evacuate through those junipers that were burning that were caused by just one of those little ball-shaped smoke bombs. And the other thing is, although we, well, I'm sure everybody experienced the weekend and last night with the rain, the hail, and all of the other things that came with that, is the wildfire risk in this area is just a day or two away. You know, we're back in the 90s and grasses will cure. And a lot of those things that are allowed by the state, when they emit the flame and the sparkles, they do, if they enter into grasslands, we do have that increased wildfire risk. And we're working at the state level. I'm also the president of Colorado State Fire Chiefs. And we have a lot of concern this year, especially with the wildfire season with COVID, of how to mobilize our troops into larger fires. Granted, I'm not going to see probably a what we would call a campaign fire in the Timnath area, but the potential is definitely there for significant grass fires in some of the wildlands we have in the Timnath area. But I just want to close real quick and say we appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all. Whatever you decide as a council, we will work closely with you, because one of the things that we have in common with fireworks, it's in both of our names, Fireworks and the Poudre Fire Authority. We're the only folks in your town that says fire in the door, on the door. So we're going to respond with you. We will help you in whatever you decide. And probably still be very helpful in any kind of public education campaign you may want to pursue. So I appreciate the opportunity. We look forward to the community having a very happy and safe 4th of July as we come through this weird time of COVID and what that means of how we get together. And we want to just to be the partner, the great partner, to continue that great partnership that the Poudre Fire Authority has with the town of Timnath. So that's what I've got.
Okay, Chief Demand, thanks so much. And again, we are so fortunate to have you as our chief and in the town and being such an active member of the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So now we'll get back to me doing this in the right order. So
Need to officially close public comment.
Jones, do you recommend motion on your staff report?
Do I recommend a motion?
Yeah, I would think you'd say yes, but I understand I'm supposed to ask.
Certainly with the provisions, yes, I will.
The public hearing needs to be closed.
Oh, I'm sorry. So is there any more items for public hearing?
No, Mayor.
Okay. So I will close public hearing comment at 7:40. Thank you, Robert. And you've recommended the motion. Brett, would you like to, it looks like propose an amended motion?
Yeah, so I'll move that we vote on approve ordinance number 5, series 2020 with the following amendments in section 1C, where we're defining the permissible fireworks. We maintain the prohibition on 3 wheels. 7.1, the explosive auto alarms. 7.3, cigarette loads. 7.4, strike-on box matches. 8, the snake and glowworm pellets. And number 9, the experimental fireworks.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Melissa, would you do a roll call vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. Next, we have ordinance number 6. And Robert Rogers, Town Attorney, would you like to make your report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This ordinance is primarily an administrative update. In the purpose of it is to provide greater flexibility to the Public Works Department and Police Department for posting and enforcing parking signage. In addition to that primary purpose, there are some items that deal with parking vehicles in the public right of way for a purpose of selling them, which is prohibited under the ordinance. And then also there are some restrictions on parking in alleyways. The vehicle must be being actively loaded or unloaded with merchandise or freight if it's going to be parked in an alleyway. And then the only other note here is that between first and second reading, there was the addition of some language to expressly allow the appropriate staff department to impose reasonable administrative fees to offset any processing or other costs related to the towing and storage of a vehicle that has to be impounded as a result of enforcement of the ordinance. So if there are any questions regarding the ordinance, I would be happy to answer them.
Okay. And I assume you recommend the motion, Robert?
We do, Mayor. We just need to open and close.
Oh, wait, public, wait, all right, so help me out. Do I have you recommend the motion first, or do I have public hearing first?
At the end of our staff report, it's written in that staff recommends approval of the ordinance. But just for the record, I do recommend approval of the ordinance, and then the next step would be the public hearing.
Okay, so I will open the public hearing at 7:43. Do you have anybody that would like to talk?
6:43, Mark.
Oh, 6:43. Boy, time goes slow.
We do not have anybody signed up to speak.
All right, I will close the public meeting at 6:43 and a half.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance number 6, series 2020.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Melissa, would you take a roll call vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. Passes unanimously. Ordinance number 7, ordinance amending chapter 7 regarding pet licensing. Again, Town Attorney Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The agenda is just chock full of exciting administrative ordinances from legal tonight. This item is meant to bring the town's municipal code into alignment with the practices of the Larimer Humane Society. The Humane Society does not provide for licensing for chickens and cats, and those had been included in the town code for some time. Through this ordinance, the town would be updating the code to remove the licensing requirement for chickens and cats. All of the other provisions that you see in this ordinance are retained from the previous version. It was just a little bit cleaner administratively to leave that language in here rather than to deal with this by a series of strikes of 3 or 4 words here and 3 or 4 words there. So no other changes to the overall structure of the code, but for the removal of the requirement to license chickens and cats. Again, this item is before you on second reading. Staff recommends approval of the ordinance.
Thank you. So I will open the public hearing at 6:45. Is there anybody that'd like to make a comment on the public hearing?
We don't have anyone signed up, Mayor.
No comments.
I will close the public hearing at 6:46. Do I have a motion?
You have a motion for approval of ordinance number 7, series 2020.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Melissa, would you please do roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. Passes unanimously. Ordinance number 8, an ordinance regarding mandatory alcohol compliance training and regulations for outdoor consumption. You've got the floor again, Town Attorney Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance has two different sections in it. The first section deals with training requirements for alcohol vendors. The requirement is that any vendor that is open on a permanent basis has to go through the training directly. Any vendor that is only involved temporarily for, say, a special event doesn't have to be directly trained, but has to be supervised by an individual who is directly trained. This section of the ordinance is a pass down from the state of state statutory requirements that would also be enforced at the municipal level, given that the town has a licensing program and licenses alcohol vendors within its limits. The other section of this ordinance is not technically required by the statute, but it is a best practice provision that would require an external barrier for outdoor alcohol serving spaces. And this, although technically not required under the statute, is recommended by the Clerks Association that provides all of the training for the town clerk, who serves as the liquor license representative for the town. So that section is included in section 6.2.130, and it would require that a temporary or permanent fence or barrier, which shall be no less than 36 inches in height, nor any more than 72 inches in height, would be provided just as a line of demarcation, so that officers know at which point it's appropriate for them to ticket a patron who's gone outside the boundary line, so to speak, and is consuming alcohol officially off the premises at that point. This again is a second reading item. Staff recommends approval and would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Yes, Lisa.
Robert, is there a specific training that is required, or are there multiple options that servers can take? Is my first question. And then second is, are all of the current restaurants, breweries that we have in town already following this? And if not, what will we be doing to provide them that information?
Those are two great questions, Counselor, and I'll take them one at a time. My understanding is that there are alternative training options available. There are parameters that are set at the state level, and that's why we have this cross-reference to those parameters. And but I think there are at least 2 programs that are administered that that could be used. Melissa is a little bit closer to this than I am. Do you have anything to add there?
Not much. I mean, the state has several programs that they allow certification through. And it's all listed on their website.
The other, in the language of the ordinance was drafted intentionally broadly in that regard to allow for training through different alternatives as private vendors offer the services and get certified at the state level. The other question, Counselor, is a good one, and I know Counselor Pearson asked me a couple questions about this one as well, because we do have one business that we're aware of in town, Timnath Beer Works, that has a rope cordon system in place at their establishment. They've asked a few questions over the to staff and to individual council members. And just to clarify for everybody, because this item is a quasi-legislative item as opposed to a quasi-judicial item, no concerns there at all from an ex parte communication perspective. But the issue that they raised is that they have a barrier that is slightly less than 36 inches. I think there's just 35 inches high and slightly lower in some places. So they brought this to the attention of Councilor Pearson, who asked the question of us, is this this 36-inch height a requirement under state law? And it is not. So I know he had some commentary on this topic that he was going to bring up at some point.
Okay. And Aaron, I think I got to go to public hearing before you talk.
Yeah, I'll comment after the public hearing's closed.
Thank you. Any further questions there, Town Attorney? Okay. I will then open the public hearing at 6:52.
I do not have anyone signed up for the public hearing.
Okay, I will close the public hearing at 6:52 and a half. Let's see. So any comments at this point? Go ahead, Aaron.
Yes, I would just like to offer an amendment to this ordinance, just requiring that minimum height to be 30 inches instead of 36 inches. In talking with one of the owners over at Beer Works, theirs is just slightly under that at 35 with a couple sways. They have some barrels set up with a thick rope. They've been in business now for well over a year, and they've never had any type of incidents there. And they meet all the other requirements with signage saying, nothing outside this boundary, and they've never had any issues. So I would just like to, I'm in favor of this amendment if we can make that a minimum height of 30 inches as opposed to 36 inches.
So I think, and help me out with this, Robert, I ask Aaron to make a amended motion, which includes the language of the original motion with his amendments to it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, Aaron.
Yes, I make a motion to approve Ordinance Number 8, Series 2020, with an amendment of the minimum height being 30 inches.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Yes, Lisa.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question? So I'm just thinking of the events that take place in like the Old Town area where alcohol is served. And that definitely does not have a fenced area. Would this negatively impact those events? Or do we know, I understand for the more permanent ones, But I'm just thinking of all of those special events and, you know, when the whole downtown area is for the event and people are walking around, how does that impact that?
Well, the reason that this ordinance was brought to our department with a request that we bring it to the council is because there was an event. Melissa, was it the cornhole tournament?
Yeah, the cornhole tournament at the park. People walking around in the park area with alcoholic beverages. As it would affect the events in Old Town, they would just have to put up barriers like they do in Fort Collins for New West Fest and that type of thing.
So Councilor Lake, to be clear, it's not legal under state law for people during one of those events to just walk down the street or walk from one premises to the other. So what all this ordinance does is require that the vendor, whether it's temporary or permanent, put up this line of demarcation showing where the appropriate area on their property is, but that's designated for outdoor alcohol consumption. So I don't think that by virtue of adopting this ordinance itself that the council would be outlawing anything that had otherwise previously been legal. The line of demarcation, the purpose of it is just to make it clearer when somebody's in a permissible consumption zone versus outside of it.
Okay, thank you.
And also just to be clear, we tried to draft the language so that it's flexible enough that using pretty cheap plastic posts and a cord or rope between them would be enough. I think that's how it was done, how it's typically been done for the 4th of July event. So that would of course be an option for these downtown events as well.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Any other discussion? Okay, Melissa, would you do roll call vote?
Yes. Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. Okay, that passed unanimously. I'm at 7E. 7E, this item has been tabled at the request of the applicant to allow more time for public outreach and dissemination of information in response to questions from the public. I know staff has talked at length on this and are putting together an information packet and some other outreach information. Okay. And then I have been asked today that by staff to go into executive session. And Robert, do you want to?
Certainly. Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this executive session would be to discuss specific legal questions regarding a potential agreement. The public is advised that the council may convene in an executive session under CRS section 24-6-402. A 2/3 vote of the council is required to enter into session, and the specific purpose for the session must be stated for the record, which it just was. No official action can be taken during the session, and items requiring official action must be considered in an open meeting following the session. So we're looking for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss specific legal questions under section 24-6-4024B.
Okay. Do I have a motion to enter into exec session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Melissa, will you do a roll call vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got one more recital and then we'll jump in. I know this is the first time anybody's done this virtually. We will jump into the breakout room at that point in time. So the time is now 7 p.m. For the record, my name is Robert Rogers. I'm contract attorney for the town. As required by the Colorado Open Meetings Law, this portion of the executive session is being electronically recorded. Also present are Mayor Sukup, Mayor Pro Tem Collins, Councilmember Lake, Councilmember Pearson, and Councilmember Hanson. The town manager will also be joining us in the session. If at any point during the session, any participant believes that the discussion is going outside the proper scope of the session, please interrupt and state your objection for the record. As legal counsel to the town, it is my opinion that the following discussion will constitute a privileged attorney-client communication. Accordingly, under CRS 24-6-4024B, I've advised the town council that no further record or electronic recording need be kept for this session. I will now turn off the recording and we'll do that as we head into the breakout room. Okay, the time is now 7:30 p.m. My name is Robert Rogers, contract legal counsel to the town. It is my opinion that the previous discussion constituted a privileged attorney-client communication. Accordingly, under Colorado Revised Statute 24-6-4024B, no written or electronic recording was kept of the discussion. We are now going to re-enter the regular meeting. If any person who participated in the executive session believes that discussion included matters not within the proper scope of the session, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Let the record show that no concerns were stated.
Do I then ask for a motion to get back into the meeting now, Robert?
Yes.
Okay, so could I have a motion to reconvene the regular council meeting?
So moved.
Oh, second.
Okay, Melissa, would you do a roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hanson,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Sukup.
Yes. Does anybody have anything to discuss?
Mayor, just one last thing.
Yes, Wes.
So I think we had at least a little brief discussion at the retreat about the need for a work session on the public safety matter. And I think we had talked about, it was my understanding, if I heard you correct, that you would like to buckle these on the front of an existing council meeting as opposed to having a standalone meeting. So staff will be requesting a work session for the July 14th. We were already slated to bring back some information to you on site selection. And so we are respectfully asking that we have a work session to work through that and just to provide you an overall update on where we're at with GMCC contractors and things such as that nature. So if the council would permit, we would like to start at 4:30 that evening. And we could even have some sandwiches here for you if necessary. So probably go to 5:45, 5:50, take a break, and then convene for the 6 o'clock meeting on that evening.
And I think the reason he's saying this early is he wants to make sure we are all in the meeting for that. So if you see that that's a conflict in your schedule, it is, Brett?
You said the 14th?
Yes.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah, that week I'm gone.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries. Let us work around a little bit and see what we can bring back to you.
Okay.
What does the 28th look like for everybody, just off the top of your head?
That's fine with me.
Give me
Any
one
other
second.
objections, Mayor or any other council? Yes, sir.
I'm good.
And how about, I don't see Rick, Councilman.
Good.
Okay, thank you. There you are, sir. Appreciate it. All right, so let's just let it go to the 28th. Look, this is going to be one of the largest capital expenditures you do. And so I think having everybody at the table, having a good discussion is worth the 2-week period. So Lisa, are you good with that date too? Sorry. Okay, good. I see the thumbs up now. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that.
So we're going to have a work study session 4:30 on July 28th, and then it'll be superseded by the regular meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions, comments, motions?
I have a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll
Second.
second that.
Okay. Melissa, will you take a roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Rick Collins,
Yes.
Councilmember Aaron Pearson,
Yes.
Councilmember Lisa Lake,
Yes.
Councilmember Brett Hansen,
Yes.
Mayor Mark Suka.
Yes, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.